Ulgrax is the first boss in Nerub'ar Palace and has 2 alternating phases. He depletes energy over time, swapping phases when it reaches 0. In phase 1, he throws out a shitload of webs, so dodge the swirls and don't stand in the webs. If you do, you'll be rooted, so if you aren't a Sigma spec who can break the root, wait it out or beg for freedom. Venomous Slash deals a hit of raid wide and gives a few players a dot for healers to deal with. Digestive Acid is a poison debuff that gets rid of webs around you when removed, so use it to clear the room. Carnivorous Contest is a big soak on someone that deals split damage, then pulls you towards him, with the suck reduced the more people hit, so everyone soak and pop a raw. And ignore your casters being too slow accidentally. And lastly for tanks, Brutal Crush is a frontal that gives you stacks of healing reduction, so face him away and swap on every cast. At 0 energy, he jumps to the middle of the room and burrows beneath it, so don't stand under him unless you're into being stepped on. He charges across the room from big purple portals at the sides, and this one's hard to miss, so move out of it and flame anyone who gets hit. While he does this, kill the ads that spawn and pick up their tasty snacks to feed the boss when he re-emerges. While below full energy, he takes reduced damage and casts Hungering Bellows, dealing raid-wide damage with a dot and gains a damage buff with each cast. Stand in melee range and feed him the bugs until he calms down, then you restart phase 1 and keep alternating until you eventually kill the boss. This is the second boss of Nerub'ar Palace and has 1 phase. Split your raid into groups for when he casts Gruesome Disgorge, a frontal on the current tank that deals a hit of damage and anyone hit is sent into the Upside Down. I mean the Unseeming. No copyright claims here. Ads spawn inside the Unseeming, but you can see them from the outside, so aim the frontal towards the largest group to get on them ASAP. Lost Watchers channel a damage shield onto the boss, so interrupt it, and they have a tank hit, so remember to taunt them. And Forgotten Harbingers spawn blood beasts that move towards the boss and explode for raid-wide damage if they reach him, so kill them all ASAP. After 40 seconds inside, you'll come back to reality, but you can still damage the boss while you're in there, so no slacking once the ads are dead. If you go down again too soon, you'll take extra damage, and on heroic, you'll probably fucking die, so alternate groups going down. On the outside, Crimson Rain is a healing absorb on everyone for healers to deal with. Grasp from Beyond marks a few players and spawns tentacles under their feet, so stutter step out of them and watch out for the delayed strike. And Gore Splatter is lethal damage in a massive circle around the boss, so get to the outer platforms to survive. It also gives the raid a heavy dot, so pop a CD to keep everyone healthy. And finally on heroic, Spewing Hemorrhage is a rotating beam from the boss, so move around the platforms and don't get hit. Sikran is the third boss and is a deceptively simple fight. For tanks, Captain's Flourish is a 3-hit combo with 2 hits of increasing physical damage, followed by a big hit of both physical and shadow damage. The first 2 hits of Expose increase physical damage taken, so if you take the phase lunge too, you'll be eating shit. And it increases the damage taken by a second phase lunge, so alternate which tank takes the 3rd hit. The main mechanic of the fight is managing simulacrums, and requires good positioning to not overwhelm your healers. Phase Blades marks and charges between a few players, dealing a big hit of damage, a healing reduction debuff, and a lengthy dot so healers keep an eye on them. It also leaves behind a blue simulacrum that deals ticking damage while alive and explodes when it dies, giving everyone a stacking dot for each one. On heroic, anyone else hit also drops a simulacrum, which piles more on your healers, so watch where you're standing. Decimate targets the same number of players as Phase Blades, dropping a line on them from the boss. Dropping the line on a simulacrum destroys it, so try to hit them all. If your healers are struggling, send a healing CD when you pop them to keep everyone alive through the stacking dot. And tanks try to keep the boss close to the simulacrums so the line droppers have time to aim their lines. And they drop a pool on the floor when they die, so don't stand in it unless you want to go swimming at the bottom of the meters. On heroic, the pools don't disappear, so drop the simulacrums at the edge of the room with the next ones being placed just in front of the pools, just like Tindral Dispels. At 100 energy, the boss casts Shattering Sweep, a large hit of raid-wide fall-off damage, and anyone too close gets a damage taken increase, so run the fuck away. It also destroys any simulacrums left over, so if you missed more than one, you'll probably all fucking die. Definitely pop a CD for this one. And finally, Rain of Arrows just swirls under your feet like a wannabe Sylvanas, so don't get hit. Then kill the boss before your healers are overwhelmed or you run out of space. Rasha'nan is the 4th boss in Nerub'ar Palace and has 1 repeating phase with a short gauntlet. To start, the boss is fixed so don't wander too far, and the raid should be stacked. For tanks, Savage Assault is a big tank hit with any unmitigated damage being applied as a stacking dot. Swap on every cast unless your Blood Decay thinks he's a god. For healers, Erosive Spray is channeled raid-wide damage with a stacking dot on everyone, so pop a healer CD here and keep your squishies alive. Rolling Acid targets a few players and sends out a line of acid on one side of them, so move out and send it away from the raid and not towards them. Anyone hit takes damage, gets stunned, gets a dot, and if you hit the raid, you'll probably get kicked. And the acid waves and raid-wide channel both drop acid pools, so don't stand in them. Spinneret Strands targets a few players, making them drop webs on the floor and attaching to them, so drop them out to the sides. Snapping the Thread deals raid-wide damage, so stagger breaking them if your healers live permanently on the struggle bus. On heroic, it deals splash damage and webs anyone hit, so watch for anyone nearby or you'll have too many threads to break and you'll probably all fucking die. Infested Spawn targets a few players and makes them spawn a bunch of ads, dealing damage to random players, so drop them together and pop your Starfalls. On heroic, the targets now deal splash damage, so move out but not too far so you can keep the ads together for those juicy passes, and to get rid of the ads to save the raid, obviously. At 100 energy, the boss flies away, throwing a shitload of acid swirls at you to dodge while you chase after her like simps for a streamer. During the chase, the boss casts Acidic Eruption, dealing raid-wide damage and making it immune if it goes off, so make sure someone kicks it. When it lands on normal, you restart the phase, but on heroic, it'll cast Web Reeve, a massive soak that everyone needs to be inside. It deals a massive amount of damage, so pop a healer CD or a raid-wide defensive to reduce it, and it pulls you to the boss, so don't stand on the edge. Then continue simping after the boss until you eventually kill it. Ovi'nax is the 5th boss in Nerub'ar Palace and can be an ad fight shitshow. The eggs around the room hatch into different ads, and you need to break them before the canisters at the edge of the room do it for you. The boss charges to a canister when it reaches max energy, dealing channeled raid-wide damage and a large healing absorb with every tick. Assign healer cooldowns here and dodge the swirls while it channels. For the rest of the fight, the boss pulses raid-wide damage every so often to keep those healer hands busy, increasing after each canister as a soft enrage. Once a canister is empty, it leaks expanding ooze, and if it reaches any of the eggs, you'll probably all fucking die. Experimental dosage makes a few players deal heavy splash damage and break any eggs nearby, so use it to clear them before the ooze does. Ping lovers won't be annoying with this, I'm sure. On heroic, you get less time, so don't sleep on getting to an egg. If any ads touch the ooze, it gives them more health and buffs their ability. The largest egg spawns giant spiders that need to be tanked and deal increasing tank hits, and if empowered, they also apply a healing reduction. The smaller eggs spawn a worm that casts a raid-wide volley that needs to be interrupted, and if empowered, their cast time increases to test your reaction time. Finally, the egg clusters spawn a bunch of parasites that fixate and infest anyone they reach, so unless you want to replay the infested affix from BFA, stun, slow, and kill them all ASAP. And if they touch the ooze, they get a speed buff. Deal with the parasites first, then the worms, and then the spider. Just keep them all out of the ooze. For tanks, the boss casts Volatile Concoction, a small hit with a heavy dot that deals another hit when it ends. The final hit is based on the tank's missing health, so healers keep them topped up and throw an external if you need to. On heroic, several people also get Sticky Web, a permadot with a slow that needs to be dispelled. Move out of the raid and call for a dispel, but if your healers have faster fingers than a Discord mod trying to White Knight an e-girl, you'll explode and root anyone nearby. Continue taking out the eggs until you kill the boss or the ticking damage kills you all. Kyveza is the 6th boss in Nerub'ar Palace and alternates between a main phase and an intermission. Hold the boss in the middle of the room with the raid loosely stacked around. Assassination targets a few players, making them deal splash damage and giving them a Queensbane dot. When the dot expires, it deals heavy damage, so healers should spot heal whoever has it. On heroic, when it expires, it also makes you shoot orbs in 4 directions, so when it's about to expire, move away from the raid. Hopefully you got enough dodging practice from Swalderon. Each assassination target also leaves behind a phantom that mimics the boss's abilities, so drop them away from the raid and each other. Drop one in each direction from the boss and keep an eye on where they are. Nexus daggers are 3 lines from the boss and each of the phantoms, so don't get hit. Nether rifts spawn under the boss and the phantoms as well, pulling you towards the closest one and dealing light ticking damage. Twilight Massacre makes the phantoms charge at a random player, staying in the new location, and anyone hit by it also gets the Queensbane dot, so make sure you don't send the phantom lines across the raid. If it's on you, move out and point it away from the raid, but watch where other people are to avoid stacking them together. For tanks, Void Shredders is channeled damage with each tick applying a dot and a damage taken increase, so each tick gets harder. Swap after each cast and this thing hits pretty hard, so be prepared, and healers keep an eye on the tank with the dot. At 100 energy, the boss starts the intermission, jumping to the middle and dealing constant raid-wide damage until it ends. Assign some rotating healer CDs and prepare to sweat. During the intermission, Regicide targets a few players at a time, dropping a line across them exactly like blaze lines on Farak. If you have it, try not to move too much to make dodging easier for the people without it. On heroic, the boss also makes shadow cones on the floor matching the geometry on the ground, so dodge these while you dodge everyone else. Once she reaches 0 energy, you restart the main phase, but the 3rd intermission never ends, eventually killing you all, so hopefully you have the DPS to kill her before you get that far. And finally, throughout the fight, if you drop below 10% health, you'll get a hit of heavy damage, so if this happens, you'll probably fucking die. Healers, watch anyone who drops too low and try to remember that 10% health might as well be 0. The Silken Court is the penultimate fight and has 2 bosses with 3 phases and 2 intermissions. In phase 1, have a tank on each boss with Takash jumping around and spamming a poison dot on the off tank. Call for a dispel if you need it, but tank swap after the piercing strike, which gives a damage taken increase. Venomous Rain makes everyone deal splash damage, so spread out before the cast. Ads spawn that fixate people, so kill them ASAP. On heroic, they start with a damage reduction buff, so slow and kite them while blasting the shit out of them. Impaling Eruption is a frontal from a Neru'bar, so don't get hit. Web bombs connect 2 players close to it when you run into them, so snap the connections you don't need, but save one for reckless charge. A Nerub'ar burrows to a new location, then charges across the room, dealing lethal damage if he hits the wall opposite. Hitting the web connection stuns him with a damage amp, so webby boys stand either side of the charge to stop him. On heroic, you need 2 webs to stop the charge, so make sure you assign players who have better coordination than your average warrior. At 100 energy, Takash starts the first intermission, jumping to the middle of the room while a Nerub'ar burrows away. She gains a damage shield and deals raid-wide damage until you break it, and spawns web cones around her which explode with a knockback, so move to a safe space before they do. Once you break the shield, you start phase 2, with Takash now having having new abilities. Web Vortex pulls everyone in, then casts Entropic Desolation, killing anyone too close. Pop some movement to get the fuck out before it goes off, and everyone gets web connections, so run away to break them. Strands of Reality is a frontal on a random player, so don't get hit. And for tanks, Void Bolt is the same as Poison Bolt, but now deals shadow damage in case that mattered. Nerub'ar still casts his frontal, his tank hit, and spawns ads, but no longer charges, instead giving a few players Stinging Swarm. This is a dispellable dot with a damage taken increase, jumping to the closest player or to Kaj when you dispel, stunning them if they get 3 stacks. Use this to stop Cataclysmic Entropy, lethal raid-wide damage if you get more than 1 tick. Place 3 markers in the middle of the room and have swarm players pre-positioned before the cast starts, then dispel them all to stop it ASAP. Mass Dispel here is best, but if you don't have it, coordinate your healers so they don't argue over who dispels who. At 100 rage, Nerub'ar begins the second intermission, with Takaj now jumping away. You get another damage shield, but now it spawns rings of spikes all over the room, so good luck guessing where you should go and break out anyone who chooses poorly. After you break it, you start phase 3, which is all the hardest mechanics put together. Nerub'ar goes back to charging, so save a web or 2 from Web Vortex to stop it, keep using the Stinging Swarm dispels to stop the Cataclysmic Entropy, and dodge the frontals from both bosses. The only addition here is Unleashed Swarm, channeling increasing raid-wide damage, so pop some CDs to keep everyone alive. Ansurek is the final boss of the raid and has 3 phases with an intermission. During phase 1, hold the boss at the edge with range towards the middle and rotate around as you drop shit on the floor. For tanks, Liquefy is big damage with a dot and a damage taken increase, dropping a pool under the boss and swirls for everyone else, so move the boss and swap on each cast. You also get Feast, large physical damage with a healing absorb, and this hits like a truck, so pray to survive. On Heroic, Liquefy now deals raid-wide damage, and the healing absorb of Feast is based on your unmitigated damage, so start death striking for your life. Acrid Presence is raid-wide ticking damage for healers, and Web Blades are lines to dodge, so don't get hit. Silken Tomb makes everyone deal splash damage and roots you, so move close to the boss and AoE them down. Just watch out for your squishies, which at this point is probably only Moonkin. Reactive Toxin makes you drop goo, knocking up anyone nearby when you touch it, so use this to dodge Venom Nova, a lethal expanding ring from the boss. Place the goo near the raid but away from the boss, and when the Nova cast starts, everyone get inside and pop it to be launched over. When you land, it throws out waves to dodge, and the person who popped it deals splash damage, so get the fuck away. On Heroic, you get 2 goos, and popping them gives everyone inside stacks of a heavy dot, so split the raid evenly between them to reduce the stacks, and assign a few goo poppers because you can't do it twice. At around 35%, the boss shields herself and starts the intermission, connecting everyone to her with webs. Rest yanks everyone to her, so move away before it goes off and don't become a snack for Spider Mummy. Paralyzing Venom is a stacking slow and increases her yank damage, and she sends out waves for everyone to dodge too. And on Heroic, you will deal AoE damage, so don't start an orgy unless your healers are into it. Once you break the shield, she pieces out, spawning 2 Void Seekers that drop an exploding orb when they die. Split the group in 2 and use the orbs to get knocked to the platforms on each side, but the ads share health, so try not to send people flying off the edge. Good luck to anyone pugging. The platforms have a bunch of ads, so kill them all to move up to the top. Worshippers wipe the raid if their cast goes off and they give a dispellable dot, and on Heroic it deals AoE when removed, so stagger dispelling to not kill people. Expellers send lines across the platform, Guardians have a tank hit and throw out swells to dodge, and Skitterers just hurt. The boss also tries to yank you off a few times, so when you get webbed, get to the far side of the platform ASAP. At the top, you get another Void Speaker to knock you over to the boss, join up with the other group, and begin phase 3. For tanks, Infest makes you explode and spawn a bunch of ads that deal raid-wide damage if they reach the boss, so drop them far, then stun, slow, and kill them ASAP. For tanks and healers, Gorge is channeled tank damage that also deals raid-wide damage with every tick, so press all the buttons to keep everyone alive. Web Blades are the same as phase 1, but Acrid Presence is now Dreadful Presence, getting harder over time. Royal Condemnation makes a few players deal fall-off damage, so get the fuck out, and on Heroic, spikes drop on them that chain the raid, so break them ASAP to free everyone. She also summons Acolytes that cast ramping raid-wide damage, so break their shield and interrupt it ASAP. The main mechanic is Abyssal Infusion, making 2 players drop a portal, which you need to avoid Frothing Gluttony, a collapsing ring of shadow, so place 1 near the middle and 1 at the edge. After the ring, the portals explode, shooting out orbs and buffing the raid-wide ticking damage. And if enough portals explode, the boss kills you all, as a hard enrage. On Heroic, the Acolyte ad drops an essence that you need to pick up, because if it touches the ring, you'll all fucking die. When it goes through, it makes the portals explode, so wait for everyone to go through before you take the essence. And using the portal makes everyone deal splash damage, so spread out afterwards and hope your DPS hordes move. If you can deal with all of that, hopefully you have enough DPS to kill her before the hard enrage kills you all. And that's it for Queen Ansurek and Nerub'ar Palace. Congrats on your clear. Now you can enjoy the rest of the expansion unless you cleared it all in the first 2 weeks. Like and subscribe if you found these useful. I'll catch you in the next one.